In our previous lecture, we were able to discuss the idea about abstraction and the difference between sensible and then essential ideas. Now, this is just a recap about the difference of those two. Now, when we say sensible, it pertains to our concrete ideas. Now, again, we're talking about, this is still in relation with our topic about ideas and terms. Now, we have sensible ideas and then essential ideas. Now, when we say sensible ideas, this pertains to concrete ideas. When we say concrete ideas, these are ideas that are products of our sense perceptions. So, ibig sabihin, nagkaroon tayo ng concrete ideas because of our sense perceptions. This is called your sensible ideas. Now, in our attempt to better understand our experience with the world, we try to separate one idea with the other. That's called abstraction. Again, the keyword for abstraction is separation. We try to separate those concrete ideas from our mental ideas. Yung mental ideas, these are your essential ideas. Right? And then further on, we were able to conceptualize the difference between secondary qualities and then primary qualities. Ang secondary qualities, since may letter S doon, this pertains to subjective. Okay, secondary, subjective. So, ibig sabihin, it's more on relative to the product of our mental ideas. So, essential siya. That's your secondary qualities. For the primary qualities, this is inherent or embedded on the object itself. That's why it's called more on sensible and concrete. Now, why do we have to discuss this one? Because we are still going to use this idea when we try to discuss the topics that we're going to discuss in this lecture. Okay, again, ito po ang difference between sensible and then essential ideas. Now, let's proceed to the next slide. Again, ito yung diniscuss ko last time. This is just a recap. We were able to assign the difference between secondary qualities with primary qualities. Ang secondary qualities, as mentioned a while ago, ito yung mental ideas or essential ideas. Yung primary qualities, ito yung sensible ideas. Okay, so gamitin natin tong secondary qualities, essential ideas, and sensible ideas to our succeeding topics. So, essential ideas, secondary qualities, or nandun yung letter S, subjective. So, ibig sabihin, these are ideas made relatively by our thinking mind. So, these are personal interpretation relative to our ability, relative to the ability of our mind to create ideas. So, since we have the ability to name, label, as mentioned and stated by Protagoras, man is the measure of all things, ito yun. This is language. And then yung primary qualities, ito naman yung embedded mismo, natural mismo dun sa mga objects that we are experiencing in our everyday lives. So this is the thing itself as it is. So sensible, denotation, and then essential, this is connotation. Now again, in this lecture, we are going to discuss the difference between connotation naman and then denotation. Now, to make it more specific, yung connotation po is connected to the word essential. The denotation is connected to the idea of the sensible. So again, ang connotation is directly connected with the essential ideas, and then yung denotation is directly connected with the sensible ideas. Let's explain further. So again, connotation is essential, denotation is sensible. Okay, idikit na lang muna natin yung letter S with the letter D. Okay, DS. Denotation, sensible, connotation is more on mental or essential. Napunta tayo dito. Now, if we're talking about London, is this an example of connotation or denotation? The London, which is the country itself. Now, the London, of course, initially, subsequently, this is a product of our connotation. This is a product of essential idea. Pero kasi since London is known worldwide, it pertains to a specific country. Okay, it pertains to a specific place. It pertains to a specific place. Now, if it pertains, the word London, if it pertains to a specific place, ibig sabihin, pwede natin siya mapuntahan. Pag pwede natin siya mapuntahan, it can easily be validated by our senses. Kasi it pertains to a specific place. So, kung specific place to, sensible siya, may senses, so ito ay isang denotation idea. It denotes on something. So, physical idea ng connotation to. Okay, that's the other definition for denotation. Now, if you want your connotation to have a physical extension, that is your denotation. Okay, here we can see several ideas made by this man. Same thing also with this man. May mga ideas na conceive yung man na to about London. Now, but these are just ideas which pertain to the idea of London. So, kunin muna natin ang keyword for denotation. When we say denotation, this is your physical extension of your connotation. If you want to perceive physically your connotation, you have to denote something. So, when we say denote something, it has to represent a physical representative outside your mental idea. Okay, ano ba yung London na yun? Ito yung isang lugar na pwede nating mapuntahan at makita na ma-validate na may London pala. Now, how do we describe London? These are your connotation. Now, in this lecture, again, we're going to discuss the difference between connotation and then denotation in relation with our sensible and then essential ideas. And then we are also going to discuss meaning. Ano yung meaning? Ito yung when we say meaning, we try to correlate also the ideas about intention and then extension of terms. Again, we have terms, ideas and terms, and then if you want to provide definition or meaning with these terms, if you want to provide definition with these terms, ang tawag doon is meaning. Pero kasi may dalawang classification of meaning, we have your intention and then extension of terms. Okay, again, we're going to discuss two topics here. First topic is the difference between connotation and then denotation. And then the next topic, we're going to discuss the intention and then extension of terms. It's all about meaning. And then when we're done with this lecture, pupunta ulit tayo sa pangalawang lecture. Let's discuss further anong pinagkaiba ng connotation with denotation. Now, in this slide, let's check which one is your connotation and then denotation. Again, when I say denotation, pag sinabi kong denotation, this is your physical extension of your connotation. So, if it's physical, it can easily be perceived by your senses. Okay, again, denotation, when I say denotation, the difference between denotation is the physical extension of your connotation. Ano ba yung connotation? These are your essential or mental ideas. So, denotation, physical extension. So, kung physical extension siya, it can easily be perceived by your senses. Okay, so tingnan natin itong mga kultura, isa sa mga kultura ng mga Pilipino. Now, if you're going to buy a diaper in the sari-sari store, we were conditioned already by the media and by advertisements, yung pinakasikat. So, kadalasan, imbes na sinasabi mo diaper, ang sasabihin mo, pabili nga ng Pampers, yung EQ. So, Pampers here and then EQ. Is this an example of denotation or connotation? Again, pag pumunta ka sa grocery, pag pumunta ka sa sari-sari store, can you sensibly perceive Pampers and then EQ? If yes, that's an example of denotation. Okay, pwede mong na-perceive using your senses the Pampers and then the EQ because Pampers is a diaper but it is different with EQ. Okay, so ito yung physical extension of your diaper. So in other words, if you can perceive this one, this is an example of denotation. So instead of using this sentence to correct this one, kailangan may connotation. Kasi denotation lang yung binigay mo the Pampers and then the EQ. So anong connotation ng Pampers and then EQ? Of course, this is your diaper. Okay, this is the general idea. Ang connotation is the general idea about your specific idea. So, Ale, pabili nga ng diaper, but can you perceive? Ito yung example ko before using your fruit. Mabibigay mo ba sa akin yung fruit? Hindi. Ang mabibigay mo sa akin is the apple, the banana, and then the orange. The same thing with the diaper. Mabibigay mo ba sa akin yung diaper? Hindi. Ang mabibigay mo sa akin are the denotations of the diaper, like the Pampers and then the EQ. So, diaper here, since you cannot perceive this using your senses without the denotation, diaper here pertains to your connotation. So, Ali, pabili nga ng diaper yung EQ. Ito yung connotation natin. Ito yung denotation natin. Alright? So, next example tayo. Uy, pare, ano ba Colgate mo? Close up. So, Colgate can easily be perceived using your senses. Close up, same thing with close up. So, these are your physical extension of your connotation. These are your brand names. Colgate, pumunta ka sa grocery, makukuha mo to. Close up, ganun din. Pero yung toothpaste, hindi mo makukuha to. So, kung hindi mo to makukuha, this is your connotation. Now, the reason why I say na hindi mo siya makukuha, kasi ang makukuha mo is not the toothpaste itself, but the denotation of the toothpaste. So, ano yung denotation ng toothpaste? The Colgate and then the close-up. Okay? So, next. Alam mo ba yung ginagamit kong Downy? Yung Surf? So, again, Downy is a denotation of a fabric conditioner. Same thing with Surf. Hindi mo sa akin mabibigay ang fabric conditioner itself. That's why it becomes essential. Ang mabibigay mo sa akin, pag pumunta ka sa grocery, ang hindi mo mabibigay sa akin ng fabric conditioner, pero ang mabibigay mo sa akin yung denotation ng fabric conditioner. Example of which, Downy and then Surf. Alright? So that's the difference between denotation and then connotation. So let's explain it further. So the connotation and then denotation, these are your logical properties of terms. So connotation and denotation, these are logical properties of terms. Para mas madali nating matandaan, ang denotation, physical. Okay? Sensible. So, denotation, physical, PS. Okay? PS. Yan yung denotation. So, denotation is PS. It's physical. Extension of your connotation. So, it's sensible. So, mas madaling matandaan ng connotation kung mas madali mong maalala ang denotation. So, connotation is the function of the term. If you're going to provide function with your Pampers, ano ba ang Pampers? Ang Pampers, ang main function of the Pampers is the same function with your diaper. So, ang connotation is the function of the term. It's subjective, secondary qualities. Okay, that's connotation. It provides the particular meaning and then essence of a term. Ang connotation ang nagbibigay meaning sa denotation. Okay, for example, ano ba ang connotation ng pencil? Ang connotation ng pencil is a pencil is a writing utensil with a graphite lead embedded in a wooden shaft. It is used for artistic sketching and drawing, for stenography or notes. This is your connotation. Same thing, if you're going to identify pencil, hindi mo rin siya, this is also an example of a connotation, since the denotation of pencil is a Mongol. So, ano bang function ng pencil? Pangsulat. Okay, nakalagay dyan is for sketching and then drawing and then for making some notes. That's your connotation. Now, if you're going to make it more specific at magkaroon ng physical extension yung pencil, lagyan natin ng physical extension and then specific yung pagiging pencil, ang gagawin ng utak is to create na Mongol. So, hindi mo mabibigay sa akin ang pencil. Ang mabibigay mo sa akin is the extension, physical extension of the pencil. Again, tandaan po natin yung fruit na binigay kong example during my previous lecture. Okay, connotation, mental ideas, subjective, secondary qualities. It's the function of the term. Pencil is for making some notes, sketching, drawing. That's connotation. If you want to have a physical extension of the pencil, that's your denotation. Sige, next slide tayo. Denotation naman, this is your physical extension as mentioned a while ago. This is your physical extension of the connotation. It's objective kasi inherent and embedded in reality, objective reality. Ito yung primary qualities natin. So, it provides a particular meaning or the essence of a term. Is it similar? So, tanggalin na lang natin to kasi since it's similar. This is denotation. Ang denotation is the physical extension. Alin dito yung denotation? Ang denotation dito is ito mismong physical extension. Okay, yung particular meaning and then essence of a term, this pertains to your connotation. Alright? Sige. Now, let's have another example. Is this an example of your denotation or connotation? Now, since again, ang keyword natin for denotation is PS. So, dapat may physical extension siya at kaya mo siyang ma-perceive using your senses. So, in other words, these three individuals are an example of denotation. Denotation of what? It denotes something. Anong something yun? Yun yung gagawin mong connotation. Anong connotation nyo yun dito? Pwede natin gawing pretty or cute. Okay? So, that's if I'm going to say pretty or cute or a girl, that's my connotation. Okay? Pretty, cute, and then a girl. So these are relative and then subjective ideas. If I'm going to have or create a physical extension of this connotation, pretty, cute, and girl, hindi ko mabibigay yung pretty, cute, at saka girl sa inyo. Mabibigay ko are the denotation of these connotations. Ano bang denotation ng connotations ito? Itong tatlong babaeng to. Okay, so in other words, this image, is this an example of a connotation or denotation? Of course, denotation. Again, ang keyword natin for denotation is the word PS. Physical and then sensible. So, since these three individuals are can be physically perceived using our senses, this implies that these three examples are your denotation. Okay? Sige. Punta naman tayo sa meaning. So, yun yung the topic about connotation and then denotation. Now, let's proceed with your meaning. Sa meaning, again, meaning has a causal relation with ideas. As mentioned from my previous lecture, I've discussed ideas, and then because of ideas, we were able to create words. We are able to verbally extend the ideas using terms. To make the ideas concrete, we were able to create signs as well. The signs are symbols of our ideas. And since we were able to create signs and symbols, we try to provide meanings on those. Okay, so ano bang ibig sabihin ng meanings? If you try to provide description and then definition with your ideas and terms, it becomes meanings. So meron dalawang tayong kinds of meanings. We have intentional meaning and then we have extensional meaning. So these two kinds of meaning is still in relation with connotation and then denotation. So let's discuss further. So we have the intention and then extension of terms. When we say intentional meanings, this is in relation with your connotation. So connotation is mental. Ang denotation is again PS. PS. Okay, physical tsaka sensible. So we have intentional meaning. It attributes that the term connotes. It pertains to the specific attributes of the term. This is your connotation. Ang extensional meaning naman, punta tayo dun sa denotes. So, tingnan lang natin yung letter D. Andun na mismo yung sagot. Katabi ng letter D is letter E. Extensional. Kasi bakit ko ginagawa ito mas madali kasing maalala? In my case, the idea about denotation. Okay, denotation, andun yung letter E, extension, andun yung physical extension, andun yung sensible. So when we say extensional meaning, identifying physical members of the class that the term denotes.